So that is and so when you got that up in, did you say Power Court or?
Power Court.
So that was like a kind of a click moment in a way that you thought, I could do that.
At that stage, the kind of word art was very current. You know, it was very new, and it was everywhere. And when I was going up to the design loft, and there's a shopping beside it, it was Global Village. It's now something else, Neptune, and saw that and just thought, that's absolutely brilliant. And I love the visual presentation of information. Do you know, in a way that's a bit more interesting or a little bit more arresting.
Well, it kind of has a map effect where you're sort of examining, you know, in a map you'd examine obviously exactly where things are and places are, but there's something about the words that sort of generate, you know, a certain amount of sense memory, and they all kind of connect, and before you know it, you're deeper and deeper into a subject, or you know, like if it's history or it's you know, sayings and all that. Now we should jump back before we get to that sort of road to Damascus moment. There you were in 1980s, you're up in Belfast, you're teaching, you're teaching Trainer College for English and Drama. 13 years at New Park teaching. Was it always, because I know that art wasn't really big on the radar because you didn't even do it in your leaving. No. Was it ever kind of whimsically kind of in the background?
No, it wasn't. No, in the 80s I was studying drama and English, taught English and drama in New Park, but at the stage when the digital art started to come in, probably in, for me anyway, in the mid-90s, I became interested in it. And because I was quite techie minded, you know, I'd had my first computer from the late 80s, you know, so I was really interested in that tech graphic side, and had never thought I was artistic because I wasn't good at art. But this was a different way in, and I started doing a lot of photography classes, and a lovely German woman down in the Dunleary, at the night college, also started teaching Photoshop because that was quite new, and she said, look, if your photographs aren't great, here's some Photoshop skills to improve them. So that kind of got me going on the photo editing side.
And so I don't know, was that point or earlier that you kind of realised, well, you know, there's a big difference between, you know, being artistic and being creative, that you can actually make beautiful pieces of art, really, without necessarily being a perfect drawer or being able to, you know, do portraits and all that. Was that the night classes clicked it?
That was the night classes made that kind of clear to me, because I hadn't been good at art in school and the art teacher had said, don't do this for your leaving, Susan. I had just thought that was it. I wasn't creative, and I put the whole range of arts and creativity into that category of not being good.
When the teacher said that to you, because you strike me as somebody I just assumed to always have a love of art, and I don't know whether when a teacher tells you, you know what, you're not good at art, kid, don't bother.
And it shows that the impact of a throwaway statement for her. She probably never meant it to be as
a life kind of, you know, life changing.
But it just, you know, the impact of that. I mean, I wasn't heartbroken, you know. I toddled off into biology or something instead, you know. But it just later, and I think much later when I travelled all through Mexico and I saw just different representations of art and much more kind of naive art, and I just I've always loved art, but the school art didn't do it for me.
Now we should say that this is really largely all the fault of Lily, because there you are, you're teaching in New Park, 13 years happily working away in a job that you're
absolutely loved.
And then Lily of course comes along and ruins everything by being a baby and demanding your time. Was it a long sort of, like, you know, road between the arrival of Lily and that sort of feeling of, oh, this is an alternative, I can, you know, with these night classes and that there's something, I don't know whether immediately you thought...
I thought I'd go back to teaching, actually. I thought after Lily was a few years old I'd go back to teaching, and then I had Toby, and I thought, well, after a couple of years I'll go back, and then I had Tom, and then a couple of years. The span that I was out of teaching got longer and longer. And in fact, when I did go back, because I went back into Temple Carrick a couple of years ago, I really felt how long that span was. Now, in fact, kids haven't changed and literature hasn't changed, and it was lovely to be back in the classroom. But in the meantime, I had kept ticking over with the word bird, but not realising actually how much it had grown, you know, what a viable business it had become. Because it had never started out with that intent. It was started out when Tom was starting play school, and I thought I just need 1 or 2 more years for my teaching hours to work with his school hours, and I just need something to do from home. And I'd done all of this night classes and everything, but it actually has grown to be quite a sustainable, you know,
like a real
business.
Well, I was thinking, sorry, when the last kid goes to play school in 2012, it's a year later that the word bird sort of becomes a definite. I know you got help from James Griffin. He was showing you the framing, and Julie Q was telling you how the business side of it works. I don't know whether there was a kind of a moment you said, okay, I'm actually going to do this, or whether it sort of happened to you that...
It was a little bit more gradual perhaps than a moment. I mean, I knew I needed to do something and I needed some money, and that, I mean, those are always great, you know, motivations for doing something. And I had some good ideas, but and where I'm very lucky, and I think a lot of us are lucky in Greystones, is that we have a community that can help us. I mean, when your community is your initial marketplace, because you're going around the local craft fairs, you're putting it on the local forums, and you're saying, do you want to buy this? And people from your neighbourhood buy it. So, you know, that gets you going.
It's a good test market of figuring out how it works and why it works.
And if there is a reaction to it, because before that I was selling bits of photo jewellery that was set into kind of resin, and they were lovely, but they took far too long to do for what I could really charge for them.
Sure.
So very quickly my marketplace said, yeah, we like these, but the finance showed me it wasn't viable.
Right.
But the other thing you need, as well as having a good idea, is you do need other people to show you the way. And without people like James Griffin and Julie Quinton-Menzies, I mean, I wouldn't have had their expertise coming to bear so quickly, saying, this is what you need for printing, this is what you need for frames. And Julie was brilliant on the pricing, because she says, right, this is what it's costing you, but she said you have to mark up, you've got to work out your time, you've got to work out, particularly if you're looking to get into retail a bit down the line, you've got to get your pricing right. Now, she told me all that at the beginning, and actually I didn't heed it at the very start, because I was really only selling at a direct sale price. Sure. And I think looking back now, my pictures were probably half the price then than they are now.
Right.
Because I have to charge the same to people if I'm selling directly as if I'm charging in the design loft or in the design gallery, and obviously they all take their cuts because they've got to pay staff, they've got to pay rent. So that the pricing thing, that took, and I've no business background at all, and that took quite a lot of knocking it into my head.
It's a tough one, isn't it? Yeah, it just it feels unnatural. So it feels, you know, kind of uncomfortable to sort of think about the money side of it. But it has to. You have to put oil in the engine, otherwise it'll seize up.
Or else you're looking at this, and I mean, I know I'd picked up things in the past at craft fairs thinking, jeepers, I could make that at home. And yes, you probably could. But to make a living from it, and if you want to support people making a living and you want to buy the things that they make, then they can only make a certain amount a week. They have to make a certain amount a week financially for that to work. So they have to just divide that down, and that, you know, that's one way of costing it. So that's been a big learning curve. But I mean, what a great community we're in for people to help us and to give advice. And I rarely leave Wicklow for anything. You know, between Newtown, Mount Kennedy and Bray, all my supplies, all my bubble wrap, all my paper, all my tubes, it's all on my doorstep.
So I'm trying to think now too with the sort of idea that it's a huge success now. You're in 27 countries. You've got, you know, 8 galleries around the country. That idea that there's a kind of a breakout. I don't know, the Monkey Map was the breakout.
Yeah, it really was. It
made you realise.
It really was.
I'll describe the Monkey Map now. I'll put it in there, but just so people know what this was all the...
So it's a map shape of Ireland made up with Irish vernacular. So with Irish sayings that are particular to Ireland. And a lot of them would be a little older. I'd started with things my dad said. He's a real dub. He's in his mid-80s now, and he has a colourful phrase for everything. So a little bit of cleaning up what's needed to sell it. You know, it used to have your bollocks. It
doesn't look great. There's lots of asterisks all over your poster.
Honestly, like, he used to sneeze a lot when I was a kid, and he'd say, "Oh, bollocks," and I thought that's what you said when you sneezed. I went to school and I heard people saying, "Excuse me." I had no idea.
That's the French version. Some people prefer the French. With the Irish is bollocks.
But it really ran, which was great. And it went onto Twitter. And at that stage, I didn't understand Twitter. And I didn't maximise the people who were retweeting it. And the radio stations were. And rugby players and AB Humour Man. And people, I really could have been retired and living in the Bahamas if I had known what to do with that.
But there would have been great joy, of course, in recognising that that's such a response to it, that it's not just your friends and people in the town, but the whole world sitting up and having a good laugh at your creation.
Buying it. And I mean, the people's likes transferring into purchasing. You know, that's such an affirmation that a complete randomer is going to buy something you've made, you know, because and they love it. I think it's the nostalgia in it, particularly for people living away, that our language is such a connection with our home, and the older phrases that resonate back to what their mum said or their granny said, it's such a strong connection. And you can hang it on your wall in your bathroom or your sitting room, whether you're in, you know, Sydney or Washington DC, and you feel a bit at home. And it's not too cheesy. It's quite funny and it's nostalgic, and it shows your new American or Australian neighbours that what you say is genuine. You know, you haven't made these things up. So it is sold really well.
Again, it is literally a map of our kind of phrases and our language, and it's the music of that language too. You can kind of hear it play out as almost traditional national anthems in some ways.
That's
you know,
right.
There's a lovely feel to it. Now that idea too that you recognise that I think Julie was the one who sort of tapped you into this, that naturally customizing a piece of work for someone is amazing, that they have, you know, either a name or they've all their own particular kind of history and they just want it within one of these images. But then having ready to go pieces that just have a kind of a strong impact on people, and it's just a perfect. So that balance obviously is huge.
That balance is big, because to be in 8 galleries and just have that residual sale going, and the galleries are in places where by and large it's tourists. So I don't even need to change the stock that often. Do you know, the tourists change rather than me having to keep inventing new pictures.
Sure.
So a lot of them will have an Irish theme. There's the pint of Dublin pubs, there's a pint of Cork pubs for Cork, you know, there's a pint of Kerry pubs for Kerry. So they're very tailorable to the places where they sell. And then the other big theme, and it's because I suppose I was an English teacher, is the children's literature, and well, and also adults, a lot of poetry, anything that's copyright free I can use. I'm always been asked to do things like Harry Potter and I can't, you know, they have to be, that's why it is things like Alice in Wonderland, or you know, they have to be out of copyright for me to use them.
Must be joyful when you do, kind of just like any artist, really, just when you trip on a new idea and it starts to run, because once you even just open that door, of course there's lots of possibilities with phrases and quotes and all the rest. Now I'm thinking though, there must be times when you think, okay, the language here, being Irish, is sort of verges on a none would be offended. Yeah. Do you ever kind of struggle? Because I know I know there's a wonderful one with the Guinness pints, and just having different names for being blathered. You know, you've got shit-faced in there and arsehole, and I don't know whether that's a kind of like, where do we go?
Gallery has chosen to stop that, I have to say. In fact,
but that's fantastic as well.
I don't think any gallery has opted. Now that you mentioned it, so that only sells online or at craft fairs, you know, because obviously the galleries have a kind of decorum. Well,
they just feel that somebody might walk up to them and say that's an outrageous
and even
word
the
to
Irish
have.
insults is a little bit, you know, one or two places take it and it runs well. But but I mean, that's the fun. And then I've made things that I think are brilliant, and I'd say in 7 years I've sold 10 of them, because you know that I had a pair of jeans of Irish inspiration.
That's all the women, and it's in the jeans, which is a nice double meaning of
and I just thought this was so funny, and the idea was that you'd have your pair of jeans by your computer if you were a girl, and every day you'd randomly Google somebody. Now, they weren't all current people, and perhaps a remake, I should make it more current. But these
had Mary Robinson and Katie Taylor, and people that would be an obvious reference to the Irish female kind of success story.
Every Irish sports person or every Irish female politician, but they were representatives, and from going way back, so that we could see that there have always been Irish women at the cutting edge of every field, of every discipline. But that, look, nobody bought that. In fact,
Bridie Minnie was in there, right?
Oh, yeah, of course.
She's right on the zipper. She's the one. Now, we should say, just in regard to it being something that you kind of feel, I don't know whether you sort of had a moment where you realised, well, this is my job now, this is what I do, this is my life. Did that happen early on, or did it take time?
No, that really only happened 2 years ago when I went back into teaching, and I only went back in part-time. And because that had always been at the back of my mind that I was doing this until I went back into teaching. And when I went back into teaching, when it was brilliant, I realised how busy I was trying to keep going with the word bird as well, that it wasn't very easy to park it for a couple of months when I was teaching. And I thought, gosh, that's actually become my real job. Right. Now, I think that hadn't really dawned on me until I was trying to do a second job at the same time, and I saw how big the word bird was and how much time it actually takes. When you work at home, you tend to tip away at things. Sure. You know, I can easily go out and walk the dog for 2 hours, and I can then make up the time by working till 1 a.m. You don't maybe realise. The plates have to be spun though to keep them going. Hours, until I really squeezed out, 20 of those hours a week were now somewhere else, and I was having trouble, just keeping up. Well, was that a good feeling then when you realised, this is this thing that I love doing? That's sort of, I won't say it's sort of like a hobby, but it started as something that you had an outlet to do, to be creative, and suddenly, actually, this is my real job now. Yeah, absolutely. Good feeling, I would imagine. Really good feeling. Really good. Yeah. And then you don't have to put up with those horrible kids in Temple Carrick. So it's a double win, really, when you think about it. It was really hard teaching that big, bright, beautiful school. Air-conditioned rooms. So you've come a huge amount. That's a huge distance that you've sort of come from what would have been, a kid being told, for your Leaving Cert art isn't your thing, to this is your life. Art based. Would you like to call up the teacher here now live, and we'll just give them a quick... But nicely done, and we'll link people to all, obviously, your websites and all that, and
And of course, this time of year, more than ever, people just, that idea of just grabbing something that is kind of from here. I know there's a lot of artists in this area, and they do so unique things. And Caroline Gallagher, I know Tony Smith's around. There's lots of people now. And it's just so easy because it's it's just, it means a lot to not only the person getting it, but it means a lot to the the town, and the sense that we are a community. And But nicely done, kiddo.
Really good community to be in. I mean, honestly, this wouldn't have happened without it being, I don't think, in Greystones.
Yeah.
That initial reach out where I needed to transfer the idea into a product to sell, with the skills and the resources and the information to do that, and the marketplace, that all came to me from Greystones.
So you're saying we're an arty-farty pretentious bunch?
I think we have a community that
of arty-farty pretentious. You've been very diplomatic there. But yeah, we are blessed. I think we have got a huge amount of people who are either in the arts or just love it and appreciate it and all that. Yeah. Nicely done, son. We should finish with a song because it's coming up to Christmas, but I think I'll spare you. But nicely done.